Hey, and welcome to Turo Fitness Podcast, a podcast for people who want to get no BS information about fitness and know that fitness is about so much more than losing scale weight. It's about feeling confident in your skin and empowered in your life. I'm your host, Turo Virta, personal trainer, strength and nutrition coach, and most of all, a husband of my beautiful wife, Miriam. Each week, my guests and me will give you some no BS fitness tips and motivate you to take action in your own personal fitness journey as we talk about nutrition, exercise, mindset, personal development, and executing in life with enjoyable but still effective strategies. If your goal is to look better, feel and be strong and experience transformation from inside out, you, my friend, are in the right place. Thank you for jumping in, and now let's jump into today's episode.
Hi, and welcome to Turo Fitness Podcast. Today, I might have a little bit different episode than usually, as my guest, Steven Puri, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly,
you got it,
is not necessarily fitness coach or a client of mine. So before I tell you more about, I rather leave word to Steven. So please introduce yourself, who you are, what you are doing, and what is who you are.
Sure. I am very happy to be here. And for those listening, I am not the normal guest on this podcast. And this is going to be a little different episode. So let me give you my background briefly. I've been a senior executive at 2 motion picture studios. I've also raised $21 million of venture capital and founded 3 tech companies. And in doing that, the last 6 years of my life have really been dedicated to how do we find focus? How do we develop the habits that allow us to do the great things which we're capable? And what I thought was so interesting in talking with Turo was these habits can be the habits that help you paint, that help you be Michael Jordan, that make you able to invent, new tools that the world uses. And the opportunity to come here and talk about some of those is really very intriguing to me. And I hope it's a good episode for all of us.
Yeah, no, because this is exactly that was the main reason I get requests weekly. And it's what really stand out is that kind of burnout, but we will talk about it later. But I was thinking that this might be an amazing episode for a little bit different, like not just the typical fitness talk, but because there are so many different things that they are also related to fitness. And even you might think that it could be time management with or productivity with your work or with your family, but also within your workouts or within your fitness, because we all have same kind of struggles finding a time, what is priority, and how to deal with those things. And I'm curious to learn from you, Steven.
Well, here we are. Where shall we begin?
Let's start with productivity, as that is your. I think you are very good. You have, but before we dive deeper into that, you have Sukha community. Mm-hmm. So would you tell a little bit about that community?
Sure. So for those who are listening and are familiar with flow states, I created a flow state app based upon the last 6 years of research that I've done and my desire to help people get into flow. For those who don't know what a flow state is, we'll give you a brief explanation now. Mm-hmm. So there was a Hungarian-American psychologist, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he said, I noticed that high performers have these concentrated states they get into where they do great things. He said, I want to understand, how do they do this? What are the conditions precedent that allow them to get there? And he said, it's across disciplines. It is athletes, artists, inventors, different people, but they have this place they go where they do the things that change their world or maybe the world around them. Mm-hmm. So it's called many things. I'll explain to you. Mihai, he wrote the seminal book on this called Flow. Mm-hmm. And the reason he chose this is he said, I like the metaphor that you can be paddling, you can move yourself forward, but if you do it on the river, the river carries you forward. It magnifies your efforts. He said, I want to call this flow. And that is where the term flow states come from. Now, as I said, people call it different things. Michael Jordan has this famous quote where he says he's in the zone. He said, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. There are no defenders. There's no scoreboard. There are no spectators. It just, the entire world comes down to that. There's no time. There's no distraction. It's me and the ball. Mm-hmm. But also, Picasso had a similar quote where he talked about, I stayed up all night. I lost track of time. I didn't eat. I forgot to drink water. But look, I created Guernica. What do you think? I'm angling the quote a bit, but it's that sense of these people whose names we know in daily life. They have a way to access this state. Mm-hmm. And how do we make that available to a lot of people? So the answer to your question is, I built an app for people who are working on a computer to get into a flow state using all the music and the automated coaching, things like that help you get there and block your distractions. However, the larger principle is a very powerful one that I'd love to talk about.
Mm-hmm. How, this is something like I'm ex-athlete, ex-professional ice hockey player. I'm coaching women's ice hockey national team Italian. We are preparing to upcoming Olympics. And
amazing.
And
my wife, by the way, my wife was a D1 ice hockey player in the ECAC.
Oh, nice. Oh, amazing.
So a lot of her friends from college are now professional ice hockey players here in the United States and Canada.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we have also many athletes from Canada. They are now coming to help us, or they got a passport. So they might, some of them might know your wife. What is your wife called?
Laura Menken. And you're going to laugh because she's now a senior vice president at PNC Bank.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She doesn't skate a lot, but we do a lot of yoga.
Yeah. No, but it's often how like you play hockey, but you learn so many different elements how to succeed then later in life and get probably like a high work, and probably like this flow state, what you are talking is one of them. And if you are familiar what it is, how to get there easier, more often, you will have probably, or your chances are to succeed in a real world a lot higher.
It is very true. One of the things, Turo, that I appreciated in our emails was the understanding of the relationship between physicality, spirituality, and energy. Your mental state, like these are all together. They can't really be separated if you want to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But how you I want to go deeper a little bit in that flow state. Because there are obviously it's a state that it's not going to happen every day, probably for most people, or it's very hard.
True. Until you train yourself.
Yeah. What is realistically, how often people can get into that flow state that for athletes, I can talk about from my own experience and athletes I work with, that it's kind of state, like you said, that there is no distractions. Mm-hmm. You are focusing on, for example, ice hockey. It's just a one shift at a time. You don't know how much time there is left or who your opponent is. And it happens sometimes. It doesn't happen every game, or it didn't happen every game for me. Or I think that there will be no athlete who is able to get there, or very few who are able to get there in kind of every single game. Mm-hmm. But how to increase those chances, or what are the keys to enter into the flow state?
Okay, so let us begin with what Mihai wrote in his book, right? And anything smart that I say in the next few minutes, let us attribute that to some other person whose work I've read, okay? So I don't want to claim to be the smart person here, but some of the things that Mihai noticed about how these high performers get into a flow state is he said, yes, it is about blocking distractions. Sometimes music helps. We can talk about that. But he said, you have to have skills that apply to the thing you're doing. So it's not Michael Jordan painting, and it's not Picasso playing basketball, right? Mm-hmm. You have to believe what you're doing is meaningful, which is a really interesting one, right? Mm-hmm. So if you convince yourself that the thing you're doing, which may be a game, it may be even playing against yourself, if you believe it is meaningful, that allows you to start the world to fall away. Right.
Mhm.
He also said, you have to be challenged. It is not a Michael Jordan playing with a bunch of eighth graders.
Mhm.
It is something where at the edge of your abilities, you are being asked to do something that is difficult.
Mhm.
And it's curious. Now, I'll tell you, for me, before I knew the term flow state, the first time I had this experience, I live in Austin, Texas, and I was flying to San Francisco. I had to go meet with my team. And on the flight, I thought I need to do some designs to illustrate this idea for this thing we were building. I remember the plane took off and the plane landed. And I thought the engine must have fallen off. Like, we must be in Dallas. Like, we did something bad happened because this flight was about 10 minutes long.
Mhm.
And I looked down and 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by.
Mhm.
I had no concept. I couldn't tell you if the drink cart came by. I didn't go to the bathroom,
Mhm.
but my designs were done. We were landing and I blocked out the world. I had focused on this thing. And I remember this feeling of like, this is incredible. Like, I thought I would go to the hotel and work all night to try and get this done and the next day have the meeting. And I was like, I have time to go to dinner. Right. So that kicked off, obviously, some research into what was this thing that happened, because I'd never experienced that before. I was used to, you just have to work really hard, and lots of hours, and you sort of get things done, as opposed to this highly concentrated state where like magic happened for me, right? Which is, I think, where Mihai's journey started. What is this thing that these high performers can access, right? So for me, that process of accessing a flow state was one that was very intellectual. But for athletes, it is, again, that thing where sometimes there is no one competing against you because you are in your world. It is you against the clock. It is you against, the physics of the ball moving, that sort of, or the puck, in some cases. So that is, when you talk about, can you achieve that every day? I think the real question is, are those conditions precedent true every day? Like, if you are doing a routine practice where it's the same people and the same thing, are you challenged at the edge of your ability? Do you believe it's meaningful? Like, are those things true? Or is that only true when it is, the NBA finals, there are 5 seconds left, and you're like, this is a meaningful experience. So I know for myself, with the app that I built, I can get into a flow state every morning. And this is, about chronotype, about knowing what times of day you're good at certain things. But I know that it's accessible routinely if those conditions are true. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, like that it's you have to create those. It's not going to happen just a regular day where you are just doing your regular tasks. That you have to have kind of purpose and being challenged in a ways that it's even possible. Because it's not if you are preparing your meal or doing regular workout, what you do 5 times a week, which is just to get workout done because it's in a schedule. If there is no other meaning, it's unrealistic to expect that you are going to enter into a flow state.
Yes.
Awesome. Then what about other thing? What I wanted to learn from you is productivity, and let's get started. Like, what do you think is the what are most people getting wrong about productivity?
Okay, so let's talk about how to get things right. And I think implicit in that will be what we do wrong, right? A moment ago, I mentioned chronotype. And just to break this up, let me give you a very interesting, fun example from film. There's a famous screenwriter who was an attorney who decided he wanted to become a screenwriter. And he was known because in the morning, he would not talk to anyone, not even his children. 5 to 9 in the morning, he had to deal with his family. He said, I'm not the dad that's going to say, what cereal do you want? Can I make you pancakes? Did you do your homework? He said, I can't talk to you and understand it's because I need to do this thing. And what that thing was, is he said, I can't hear my characters' voices after I start talking. So
Mm.
when I have a conversation about, did you do your homework? What time you leave school? He said, I lose the ability to hear these voices. So I need that time in the morning of clarity, of quiet, where he would get up without saying hi to his wife and go to his room and work. Now, this is a man who wrote the scripts that get Tom Cruise, Dustin Hoffman, Julia Roberts to star in his movie. He's written, Best Friend's Wedding and Rain Man and movies that have won Oscars, right? Movie stars who have 50 offers on their desk with $1 million checks, they've chosen his scripts. They say, these are the words I want to say. I want to play this character, right?
Yeah.
He was very aware of his chronotype. He's like, this is my time to do this. Now, not everyone wants to be a screenwriter, right? But what he understood about himself was very, very important, and it's applicable to everyone. So that is one thing that I think you can do wrong if you have not figured out at what time of day you're adept at doing certain things. And again, there's some great trainers who are like, in this day part, we are going to do this kind of training. Here's when you're going to do your mental or your spiritual training. Here's when you're going to do physical training. Here's when you're going to compete, whether you're a boxer, an ice hockey player, soccer player, whatever, right? So that's one thing you can do right or wrong is be sensitive or insensitive, be aware of what time of day to do things. Another one is about distraction. And I'll tell you, this is something, the platform that I built, you mentioned Sukha, which Sukha, by the way, means happiness. And I have a daily yoga practice, as you know, and the word it's a Sanskrit word for happiness, right? So this is something I studied with the kind of productivity when you do need to write something, do something on a computer. And there are ways for you to block out distraction that are through, meditative practices, turning the world away. And there are also tools you can use like music. For example, a lot of research has found for certain kinds of creativity, music that is 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, ambient, non-vocal music helps people get there. And have you guys ever talked about binaural beats?
No.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing. And this is something I learned in developing this platform, right? So over the past 6 years, a number of members have come to me and said, oh, hey, we're experimenting with binaural beats. Could you offer some of this, right? Now, I have 1,000 hours of music in the platform because a lot of friends are film composers who have time on their hands. So they wrote music for me, right? So I researched binaural beats. What is this thing they're asking about? And here's something that there's research, this is going on right now, about if you have two different inputs into your ears that are staggered by a certain number of cycles per second, it stimulates your brain in a certain way because your brain is trying to reconcile. Maybe it's 30 hertz, 40 hertz. The two left and right channels are different. And it causes your brain to react in a different way, to stimulate it and break out of old patterns. There are people who swear by this. I've tried it. You have to have headphones or you have to have earbuds. You have to have a way of sending different messages to your left and right ears. But it's super interesting because if you do it for 30, 40 minutes, you start to realize your brain starts thinking in different ways. So as you think about this, because I know you obviously work with fantastic athletes around the world, that concept of like, how do we get someone into that state where it's just them and the ball, the soccer ball, the hockey puck, whatever it is, right? Sometimes that ability to say, I'm blocking the world out through music, and maybe using that stimulation of binaural beats can be something interesting to experiment with. And I leave that to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is so interesting. So what you would say how to get access to that kind of tools, or what you would say that I should, if I would like to get myself or my athletes to that state, how many beats you should listen with the right ear and left ear,
there's research that there are different brain waves to stimulate, right? And this is right at the edge of science. So some of the things that I'm telling you may be true in our belief today, but in 3 years we may have learned more. Okay. So when you think about alpha, beta, gamma, delta brain waves, that sort of thing, right? And we have some theories about, maybe, gamma brain waves or delta brain waves are more about creativity, which are more about focus. there are different numbers of cycles per second for the offset between your ears, like 30, 40. We have a bunch of playlists in our platform that are about 36 cycles per second, delta. Now, there are also some great apps like Brain FM, Endel, that are just music. That's all that they do. But they offer binaural beat playlists. Wow. And it'd be an interesting thing, I think, for you to experiment with, to say like, hey, if we heard this for half an hour, does it affect your ability to block out the world and, get to that Michael Jordan place of it's just me and the ball,
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm going to introduce for sure, at least to try, like, if it's not working or it doesn't happen anything, at least you try. But those are kind of all tools what we have access to, and it doesn't cost anything to at least to give it a shot.
True. Yes. Experiment and see which gives you an edge.
Yeah. What is then about, like, you mentioned a little bit about distractions, and now, like, what I hear especially from women is that multitasking. Like, I know usually what I have seen is so many, like, men like myself, if I try to do two things at the same time, there is no way. Or even more than two things, maybe two, I can barely chew income and walk. That still probably works. It's a two tasks, but almost one is too much. But for women, like they are, at least they believe that they are able to do like 3, 4, 5
Let's
things.
Talk about this.
At the same time.
So what you're talking about, like 10, 20 years ago, there was definitely great people multitask, can juggle all these things. There was this like phenomenon of how you have to be a great multitasker, right? So modern research has shown there is no such thing. It's not a gender thing. It's not a boy, girl. It's not a tall, short, old, young. There is no such thing. This is what it is we can monotask, right? We hold in our brain, what is the context for the thing that I'm doing? It could be you're paying your bills and you're just thinking, the electricity bill. It could be you're inventing something. So you're monotasking and you hold the context in your brain of what it is I'm doing. When you multitask, what you're actually doing is you're saying, okay, let me take this context. Let me store it here. Let me find the context for something else. Load it. Do that task. Oh, I'm going to switch back to the other task. Okay, let me take this context, store it. Let me go over here, take that context, load that in. So multitasking is really just monotasking, where you burn extra energy storing and loading the context for the thing you're doing. It's actually less efficient in terms of your brain energy.
Yeah. So is it just that is the kind of cost of multitasking? It's that you actually need a lot more energy than you would do monotasking and one thing at a time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the same way in which you have to become very sensitive with the people you coach and yourself about your physical energy. Have I exhausted this muscle? Have I, brought it to a place where it can recover, right? Your brain is similar. And there's actually there's the Huberman lab. Andrew Huberman did a good podcast episode where he talked about the brain glucose levels. And what's interesting to see is like the same way in which we think about ATP and we think about, do we have enough carbohydrates and all these like things to make our muscles able to perform? Your brain is similar. And after about 90 minutes of concentration, it is interesting that your glucose level drops to the point where your brain is not as efficient anymore. It also experiences fatigue or exhaustion like a muscle, which is why it's very valuable to say, hey, after 2 hours, I need to take a mental break. Like, I'll give you an example. In our platform, it's gamified. So, you can see your score, how well you're doing. Are you distracted? Are you focused? That sort of thing. And at the end of 2 hours, you don't earn any more points. You actually earn points at that point for going for a walk, right? Because we want to encourage you, go refresh your brain, go walk around your neighborhood, do something to get ready for the next thing, right? Hydrate, breathe. Just try taking 5 minutes and just box breathing. You know, it's amazing the way water, oxygen, sunlight help us refresh the brain the same way a muscle needs to be rested, you know, when it's fatigued.
Yeah. No, it makes so much sense. And I think I listened to the same podcast episode from Huberman Lab, and it's so interesting to know, like, to listen, like you have like you know, when you hear things like you mentioned that you know, it's like a muscle, you get tired, it's like a 90 minutes for sure, not more than 2 hours what you are able to focus, but still, you know, when you try to push yourself, for me, like I hear often that, you know, I have to study or finish my working task, but I don't have time for a walk or for a workout or something. And then like I'm thinking and asking like that, are you really doing like 8 hours in a row concentrated work where you are fully productive, or are you taking some breaks in between, or at least my own experience is that if I in a days when I work out and I might get some work done, then I go for a workout and come back to work, I'm a lot more productive than in the days that I try to work out through from early morning till midday, and it's like you know, try to take that 6 hours working block, or if I divide it with the 2 blocks and do my own 30-40 minute workout in the middle, I get a lot more done. And I still get the workout.
I love that you understand yourself that way, that you understand how to get the great thing out of yourself. I have a very strong thesis that we all have something great inside. And the question of this life is, are you going to get it out or not?
Yeah.
And it comes from understanding yourself, measuring, improving. So yeah, if you do 2 hours of chest presses in a row, you're not going to get the same benefit as doing an intense amount and then breaking, recovering, and then doing another intense amount.
Oh yeah. That's a very well said, actually. So what if like now when there is so many people who are like, you know, now there's a big word like called burnout, but so many people still, like, you know, it's kind of a disease what you want to avoid, but you probably, like, so many people are already having like at least some kind of symptoms that or are in danger to get in actually in a burnout. So what is the one thing what you would immediately do that you would get more done without burning out?
You have already said it, but I'm going to hang a lantern on what you said, which is, as you know yourself, you know the point at which you can't keep repeating the activity you're doing without taking a break. So it is very much about saying, hey, if I'm going to be emotionally burned out, spiritually burned out, mentally burned out, it is like a muscle where the muscle gets fatigued. And at a certain point, you have to say, okay, I'm done doing quad work. Like the marginal return of more quad work right now is very low. I need to go do something to feed that, whether it is, hey, I'm going to take in nutrients, I'm going to take in water, oxygen, whatever it is that I need to regenerate. And I'm going to come back to this. And I will do it fiercely and as a winner, you know, as someone who's serious about this, right? But it is not about saying like, you know, and this is a culture in San Francisco, which, you know, I've lived there, is there's sometimes a glory about, oh, I was up until 4 a.m. Oh, I was coding all night. I slept under my desk, right? Do you hear an athlete who's like, oh yeah, I was in the gym until 5 a.m. to get ready for this game today? No, you need to go home and sleep. Work hard, work out, practice, work with your trainer, your coach, and go sleep. Get ready for the game. Don't sleep under, you know, the bleachers at the gym.
It's a very good example, actually. Like it makes you like, you know, because I hear it also, like, or many people, you know, who think are in that high business, they have, of course, they have a lot of things to do, what they need to be accomplished. You might have your deadlines or whatever, and it's continuous cycle that you need to do more and be more efficient, bring more profits for a company or your own company or whatever. And at the same time, you should be taking care of your family or loved ones, and you should be taking care of your own health. But then, of course, it's hard to kind of take care of everything or prioritize everything. And what do you think is the best, like how to find that kind of work, family, health balance? Like what you would say? Like I think that there are three big things. I think for almost everyone is that your own health, your family, and your work or business.
Yeah. I think it has to do with being honest with yourself about your priorities. You know, like if you want to change the world, you have to admit that to yourself. And with that comes sacrifice. You know, like if you decide you want to be the best quarterback, the best, forward, the best, whatever it is, it means that you're not going to be at your son's Little League game 3 days a week. And you have to admit that to yourself. You have to have that honesty with your family to say, hey, I want to be great at this. Here are the sacrifices I'm willing to make. Can we do this and still be a family, right? And if the thing you want is you want to be at your son's Little League game 3 days a week, and you want to get enough sleep, and you want to do this, then you have to say, you know what, my priorities are different. My priority is family. Then maybe it's health. Then maybe it's work. But I think it really comes down to you have to be honest, because if you are dishonest with yourself and say, these are all priorities, I'm going to do all, you're not going to do all of them. And the one that is actually not number one, maybe it's your health. It's going to let you know. When you start to get sick, when you start to break things, when you start to have muscle tears, because you're not sleeping and you're trying to be there for your family and you're trying to do this, you know what I mean? You have to be honest and say, hey, this 1, 2, 3 is actually the priority of my life.
No, that is for me. It's very well said, and I totally agree. Like what I think myself and what I heard a lot is like that those three priorities. Like it's most people, I believe that they try to kind of course they are all important things. And they try to do everything, like you said, they are all number one priorities, or you shouldn't be letting something behind. But I believe that you can periodize, like you said, and focus maybe 2 things at a time. And it doesn't mean that you leave, if you say that, let's say that now my focus, my priorities are my family and my own health, that you don't just go to work. It's just that work is in a maintenance, and it means that you are not probably going to change the world or anything. Or if it's like say that, okay, now my priorities is my family. Like I want to go to watch my son's ball game 3 times a week and bringing him to practice and spend time with my wife and then I have this big project in work. So it means that your own health is going to be on kind of maintenance. So it means that you are still doing something for that, but it's not going to be you won't have time to work out 5, 6 times a week for hours. So but the good thing is with these priorities that you can always change those priorities, and it shouldn't be. I think
Absolutely.
that it should be like when you are really honest with yourself and with your priorities. Say that okay, now for next 2 months I don't have anything busy in my work, so I put family and my own health as a priority. And then next month it's going to be a big work project, so it's going to be work and own health or whatever. So it just gives so much clarity and saying that okay, this is how it is, and not trying to do anything, because then it often, at least what I see, like obviously you are specialized with work balance, maybe family. I'm more on that own health part, and what I often see from people is that that's the first thing. Then when something else is higher priorities, then it's like nothing for own health. So and it often takes maybe years, maybe decades that you don't do anything, but then, your own health, you always, at some point, you can't buy it. It's one of the very few things in nowadays that you can't buy your own health. There is no amount of money which is getting you to workout done.
What you just said is so true. If you notice, the richest people on earth, the thing that they are trying to get is health.
Yeah. No, and that is like, it's not, if you are losing muscle, there is no amount of money that will get you back your heart health or your you can have a surgery, you can have these all kind of tools, but they are kind of putting some plaster or something, like just a quick help to help you come over for next couple weeks or months, but it's never going to change the whole thing. So you gotta invest your own work and your own time for your own health too.
Yes. And the decisions, this is a concept from economics, but decisions are made at the margin. It is one thing to sit back, in your chair. I sit in my chair and say, well, this is how I want my life to be. And I want to have everything. I want to do everything. Right. It's not how decisions are actually made. Decisions are made at the margin, which is my priorities are revealed when I actually have to choose, am I going to work out? Because at the same time, I could go pick up the cake for my son's birthday party. I could do that one more report to move my career forward. And at that margin is where I decide, is it my health, my fitness? Is it how my son will feel with the birthday cake? Is it how my career will change? And when you have to make a decision against, among these things, that's when you reveal to yourself your priority.
Oh yeah. And I think that it's so well said, by the way. And I think that this is the one of the hardest part to, like, actually to recognize those, like, because we can tell ourselves that, my family is my priority. Like it's for most people, you say that it's your priority, but then if things like you just said, you gotta go to get birthday cake and you are actually not going to get that because you got this one working project, right. It's not actually your priority. Then it's your work what is priority at the moment.
This is what you see in great movies and in great stories. The characters may say many things, but the characters reveal themselves through their actions. So the character who may say, oh, I'm here for supporting the goodness of the children and the environment and all that. But when you actually see that character throw, his cup on the ground, like he actually doesn't care about the environment. He doesn't care about the children's playground. It's through action we reveal our character.
Yeah. How you would, what are your favorite tips or ways to recognize, for example, let's use your own example, like what are your own priorities and how you measure them? Like what is measurement, or how you know that you are saying that this is actually my priority?
Well, I'll tell you, now this is very revealing about my life, but I'm going to answer your question, which is I have 3 priorities this year, and I can tell you in what order they are right now, which is going to change in a couple months, right? So the platform that I offer, the Sukha company, or the Focus app, the Flow State app, right? So Laura, my wife, the D1 ice hockey player, right?
Yeah.
She and I had a deal this year where from now until November, this is my number one thing. I find a great amount of joy in all the people who are able to use what I built, and it helps them in their life. I don't even collect a paycheck for this. I do this because I love seeing people do something great. Right? So that is my number one priority right now. Laura and I have been together for 10 years. We have a deeply loving relationship. We've had ups and downs and all that, but we're in a very good place. She said, you know what? Why don't you focus the next few months on your company and making that beautiful? And I can be number 2. Like I'll be here. She has her company that she does at the bank. And my third priority, which is going to become number 1, I'm going to have a son in November.
Oh, wow.
I know. I'm very excited about. So right now it's third priority, which means going to the OBGYN, doing the NT sonograms, learning, reading books and blogs about when I'm a father, how will that work? But I know come November, that's going to end up number one on the list.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And this is just an example how you change, and already before, and you have had this conversation that this is how I'm going to do it for next month, and then this is the moment. Like obviously, it's a clear moment, and probably like easy to make that now I'm going to shift that its focus is now more on family and instead of business.
That is exactly it. And we talked about how if you are aware of what you need and what you want, if you're honest about that, you can then design a life that gives you that. And if it is, I want to go win the Stanley Cup, which I know someone just did this week, right?
Yeah.
You look at the people who've won the Stanley Cup and you say, what were their priorities? How did they get there? What did they do? And then you end up structuring your life a certain way, seeking out the right coaches. And you have to have that deal with your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, to say, this is how my priorities are going to work. Is that okay? Right? Or if you say, my role model is Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase. Okay. How does he structure his life? How did he get there? And you can model on that. And they have different business coaches. A friend of mine is an executive coach. She makes about $350,000 per client per year. She coaches names that from reading, the newspaper. And she's one of those people that says, let me help design the life that you want. If we can pick the role model, whether it is the best NBA player ever, the CEO of a major bank, the guy who invents, like friends of ours invented Siri in the iPhone and Bing, the search engine, things like that. And they made that their priority. Often until they had children, and then suddenly they had children, things change.
Yeah. So I assume now, listeners, somebody might be overwhelmed, like that. You have, I have so many priorities, like what is happening in life at the moment, and what is the one thing where should someone who feels now overwhelmed, where you should get started?
I would get started by writing an honest list of what I wanted to say when I died.
Wow.
If you found me on my deathbed and said, Steven, what was great about your life? If I could honestly write down, okay, it was this, this, and this. Because once you think about all the daily drama being over and it's all done, and you were just saying, hey, I have 5 minutes left to live. What did I live for? A lot of things become clear, and maybe that thing that you'll say is, I'm very proud that I won Wimbledon. I'm very proud that we created a banking app that helped all of Africa have access to banking. Maybe I was the best father I could be. But if you start by saying, when I die, what is it I want to be able to say? You can start designing today.
Yeah, so well said. And then I would add into that, like it's so true. And then like I would probably if you, like you said, then like I would say the second step is to take a look on your calendar. What are your priorities? Are you actually doing those? Are those actions in your, if I assume everyone has kind of calendar with the appointments for themselves, and if you tell that those are priorities, but there is for example, if my priority at the moment is my own workouts, but I don't have time for my own workouts because I'm busy with my family and my work, so it's not my priority.
That is exactly right.
So what is I want to close this episode. I have a few more questions, but this time is flying. I feel like that we are already 50 minutes in, and I think we could go.
I hope people still find this interesting. I hope someone's still listening. Like, what can I say?
But what is like one productivity habit that changed your life?
I live by my calendar now. What you just said is very true for me and true for my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Is I recognize that the one thing that you can't have more of is time. Like you can get more food, you can get more exercise, you can do many more things. But the thing that is absolutely limited is time. So how you spend each moment is very, very telling. So for me, my calendar, how I decide to spend this 2 hours with you, right? In the hope that someone listening benefits and says, wow, I learned something. I can adopt that technique. That is how I decided to use these 2 hours. And if you look at my calendar today, you'll see that each thing on there is there as a representation of some priority I have. So for me, my calendar is the structure of my life. My priorities are represented there.
And that
including going to yoga tonight. Before I go to dinner, Laura and I are going to yoga. And that is a daily practice for us. I love the physical and the spiritual sort of melded in that. Which I did not, when I originally did yoga, I did not understand that. I had a girlfriend who was the director of marketing for YogaWorks. And she gave me a free class card with 8 or 12 classes. And she gave me a mat. Like a good boyfriend, I went. After the classes, I didn't really think about it. I never went back. And then I happened to be in India with my father and some friends a couple years later. In the middle of the forest, there was a guy who was teaching a yoga class for free, just community yoga.
Wow.
And I thought, I have nothing to do right now. I'm going to go try this. And at the end of that class, I wanted to call my old girlfriend to say, I now understand the gift you were trying to give me 3 years ago.
Wow.
And it's a daily part of my life. So that's in my calendar.
Yeah. Is this something like, because I would ask, but this is my second question, that if someone want to apply these concepts, like let's keep it in fitness now, that like, for example, you would like to work out more or eat better or sleeping better or more, how can you apply these concepts? Like what advice you would give?
Really, I don't want to come up with new advice because I believe what I said, which is if you are honest about your priorities, and a great way to do that is think at the end of my life, what do I want to say? And then you look at your calendar and say, there are only this many seconds in the day. How am I going to use them that work to get me that life? That I don't want to overcomplicate it. That is I think a really helpful way to begin.
Yeah. And probably like you said, adding those things into your calendar, that it's kind of like, it's at least for me, what works really well. Like earlier, I would say that I would work out when I feel like doing it. But I realized that method, it worked sometimes, but especially things that I naturally don't enjoy, and strength training, even I'm a strength coach, is not one of those things I naturally enjoy doing. I know that I need to be doing it, because if I don't do it, I start to have pain. I don't feel as good as I do. It makes me feel amazing. I'm not just motivation that I'm intent that I'm going to do it when I feel like doing it, or when I don't decide before when I'm going to do it. It doesn't happen as consistently as it is in my calendar. It's non-negotiable event for myself. Like it's there, and I don't ask myself questions that how do I feel? Like am I like? Of course, some days I don't feel motivated working out. That's the last thing I want to do, and I try to talk myself out of doing it. But the way how I do this, I made it as easy as possible for myself. I have a small home gym in my garage, and all I have to do is get there, do one exercise.
That's great.
And after that, if I still feel like that, okay, today is not the day, I don't have time, motivation, I'm not doing it. Once I have done one exercise, I give myself permission to quit, and it made me more often than not, at least to get started. And then I know myself also that once I get started, I might not finish the whole workout, but I do more than that one exercise and more often than not, I end up doing a lot more and getting at least some kind of workout in instead of doing nothing. And because then once you start to skip those workouts, it's every week becomes easier, and you have sooner than not you realize that there is like a couple months, maybe even years. For me,
Yes.
my short break from strength training, it ended up being 10 years. So have some kind of experience from doing that myself, and now not trying to not repeat the same mistakes again.
Yeah.
Awesome, Steven. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed.
This was super
really appreciate your time and learned so much. I hope someone enjoyed it. If someone wants to connect you, you have any platform how to connect with you, your services. Feel free to tell everything.
I will say this: if there's anything that I've mentioned and you are listening in your car, at home, whenever, working out, and you want to know more about it, you're welcome to email me. My email address is very public. It is Steven@thesukha.co. That's THESUKHA.co. If you're looking for a link to Mihai's book, or what was that reference to Huberman's podcast, I am happy to reply. It will not be 19 paragraphs, the story of my life. I don't have time for that, but I do get back to all my emails in 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. Right?
Awesome.
And if someone wants to try the platform that I built, it is at thesukha, THESUKHA.co. And it's free for 7 days, no credit card. Just helps you get into a flow state if you have work to do on your computer.
Thank you. I will add your email address, your company link to my show notes, so you can check them out from there. Okay. So thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed the episode, please leave 5-star review. Those are helping so much to more people to find this episode.
Leave a review if you liked it.
Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Okay.
Hold up, friend. Do you love Fit Me Turo Fitness podcast? If so, the best way to say thank you is to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes. I know every podcaster wants you to leave a review, but it's because those reviews help the podcast to reach more people. I truly want to know what you think, and if this particular episode resonated with you, would you also please share it? Either send a link to someone who you think will find it valuable, or take a screenshot and post it into your social media and tell your friends and family why they should listen it. Make sure you tag me so I can hear your feedback and give you a little love. And if you aren't already following me on Instagram or TikTok, that's the perfect time to hit that follow button. Thank you for being here and listening to Fit Me Turo Fitness podcast.